Two and one. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Of Like Minds video podcast. Today, I have a super special guest today, my good friend Ken from GWOWNUPS. Ken, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
Ken, just first and foremost, I want to share with the audience my first how I first knew you and met you, and you probably recall it was at Culture Shock Dance Studio, and it was, I think, summer of 2018. And I was taking a bunch of classes. And I remember always just seeing someone. I was just like, who is this bitch with red shorts, short red shorts, short black shorts, killing it every time in class? And I was so mad. I was like, who is this person? How come I don't know this person? Like, why are they so good? And funny enough, later on after that summer, I eventually met you at auditions officially on Grown Ups. But I always saw something in you. And yeah, I just remember like that was just so memorable seeing you in class and seeing you fuck it up. And just like, look at this bitch. But I never let you know that though. I was always like from
I
afar. I
know.
was like,
I could see that you're pretty distant for a long time. Yeah. Uh-huh.
and it's funny because obviously, during Gen 2 of Grown Ups, the dance company that Ken and I both dance on, it was cool to like to get to know you and to really connect and to really just like share laughs and be like, damn, like why was I such an asshole to this guy? Like so distant, like how everything is the way we are now. So it's just cool for everything to come full circle and to just like for you to just be on the podcast, and it's just like it's so wild to me and I'm just happy.
Mhm.
But anyway, after that little spiel, just how are you doing today? How are you doing today in this crazy world that we live in right now?
I I am I'm honestly doing better than a lot of people would be in this very trying time. Um, I'm working from home, so I'm very
Mm,
privileged, very fortunate for that opportunity. Uh, I have a loving partner and a
mm.
beautiful dog who's sleeping right behind us right now.
What's the name?
Blade.
Blade. Badass. Blade.
Yeah, no, um, yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a year. Just a lot of people have been experiencing different unique ways of experiencing this year.
Mm.
But mine has so far been kind of enriching and fulfilling, but also very traumatic at the same time. Um, so it's been a juggling of both. Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, you talked about working from home, and I know that's an adjustment in itself. I know a lot of people are going through that. And if you could
Hmm.
just speak about what that adjustment was like in the beginning in quarantine and now having, I guess, getting a little more familiar, what's it been like for you just working from home and that adjustment?
Mm, but to be really honest, not so right before the pandemic, um, I was still unemployed. I was transitioning from being an international student into actually getting my green card
Mm,
over here. So I was during that time period, I was jobless. So I was scouring for a lot of jobs, looking for small gigs here and there, just to pay off some bills. And yeah, to pay off small bills. But um, before that, I was working in office in Sorrento Valley PlayStation,
mm,
and that's where uh, I got a pretty good insight on what being a full-time employee there would be like, or just in any office setting.
mm.
So transitioning from that to being scouring for jobs and then now to working from home is a very drastic shift for me. Um, yeah, but I'm lucky that I'm very privileged that I even have that opportunity and that my work from home situation is in a good I'm in a good space where I can actually do work from home whereas a
Mm,
lot of people may not have that access to that kind of environment at home. So yeah, um, I think my transition into work from home has been pretty roller coastery, but
yeah,
for the most part, I'm very privileged and honored to be even be working at home. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think too, just I mean, you talked about having worked at PlayStation before, and I guess maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but are you at another company right now, or you're more you're I know you're doing a lot of freelance work and you're doing a lot of work for yourself too. So I mean, even that contrast of working for someone else and then like now a lot of your time is now working for yourself. Maybe you can just talk about that dynamic and differences, pros and
Mhm.
cons, your
Mhm.
experience in that.
I think one thing, like the transition between PlayStation and the company I work right now, which is Buck,
Mhm,
the office in LA, and they do design creative solutions for big companies like Apple. But
mhm,
I think my um, biggest differences between that time where I was actually just freelancing and doing small commissions and gigs for other people versus what I'm doing right now is having a safety net and a network
mm,
you can rely on pulling out more jobs. When you're actually freelancing, that's really hard if you just came out of a job and right before that job you just came out of college where you don't have a lot of connections. So
mm,
um, being able to transition from that to where I work now, which has established connections with companies, so I don't really have to worry about building up these networks. Um,
mm,
yeah, but and that's something I'm considering doing in the future. If I ever want to freelance, I would have to build up all these networks and mutual connections before I um, even think about freelancing and working for myself. Um, but whereas right now I feel a little bit more comfortable where I have a safety net. I know I know what to work on. Uh, and my company has big clients that are pretty reliable.
mm,
So whatever's coming, income is pretty secure right now. But as a freelancer, especially if you just came out of college and out of your first job, that's that's very risky, unless you have already a set of people to work for, if that
mm.
makes sense. Yeah.
If you can just talk a little bit about, was PlayStation the first like grown up job you had in terms of out of college, or what was that journey like?
Yeah. PlayStation was this might piss people off, but it was a it was a back burner of all the other jobs that I aspired to work at. Um, it was that one job you saw on LinkedIn, and you tossed your resume and just crossed your fingers and hope they actually saw your resume, and they did, and they liked me, so they asked to relocate me to San Diego, and I was really happy about that.
Mm,
Um, But what I didn't do and what I usually don't do, which I I would advise people to do is do their research, right, on actually the working environment and in particular where you'd be working. And because corporate businesses, small businesses are different than large corporates like
mm,
PlayStation, where we have different factions and departments. So looking into those departments even more is very important. Um, but yeah, I took, went on a whim. Um, I said, I've always wanted to go to California.
mm,
I visited once during my sophomore year.
mhm,
I loved LA. I loved the environment. So I said, yeah, and San Diego's a really cool place to also dance. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, I said I'll just take a whim. The pay's really good.
mhm,
And yeah, but for the most part, I didn't enjoy my time, and it was just because I felt like my capability of creatively growing as a to grow as a designer was pretty stagnant when I was working there. Um, and I look forward to dancing every day just so I
mhm.
can get out of that situation or my office from time to
Yeah.
time. Um, and it was pretty convenient because the office was like 15 minutes away from Studio FX.
Mhm, mhm,
So yeah, it was good for the most part, until I hit a point where I felt like I was just doing someone's dirty work. Uh,
mm,
yeah, but I think during the transition between, because I was an international student
mhm,
transitioning into my green card, so I was left jobless. I was like, this is a really great opportunity to expand my horizons a bit in terms of where I want to be in my career.
mhm,
And so I reached out to a lot of companies that I've looked up to in college, um, and Buck was one of them. And luckily enough, the my head of design in the team that I'm working in contacted me back and said, "Hey, we love to interview you. Your work is amazing." And yeah, no, I got it's the internship to a full time, so I was on an internship road to full
mhm,
time. So I was like, well, I might as well do it. This is like a company that I've been
mhm.
um, looking up to for many years. So yeah, I just decided that this would be a very next big step for my career path.
Well, if you can talk a little bit about that, Ken, just you talking about your current, the director that you kind of work with now. Obviously, during the job vetting process, when they're reaching out to you, and I mean, what does that do for you mentally when you hear before you even have the job that like, hey, I like you, your work is amazing, let's set it up. Like, I mean, that's got to do. I can only imagine that's got to do wonders in terms of your confidence and you feeling really strongly about the company just vibe. I mean, what did that do for you mentally going into that job and that interview?
Yeah, no, it definitely boosted my um, it validated a lot of my insecure or invalidate my insecurities
Mm,
I had about my work, because I had all these expectations of myself, and I wanted to be a part of something like Buck for a long time, and it just was not it wasn't hitting until they actually reached out to me. But then I I I'm thinking now, I feel like there's there's a level of validity that I'm trying to reword this, but I feel like you should come to an understanding of your own worth as whatever profession that you're going into, but also keeping in mind that companies and businesses will hire you because they think you can fulfill the job and be efficient, and proactive at it. So I think understanding that if one company uh, doesn't hire you, doesn't necessarily mean that they hate you or that your skill sets or your um, as a designer that you're not valued in the team. It's
mm,
just that it's right time and right place If they need you as a designer in their company, then they'll have a position for you. But if they
Mm,
don't need one, then there are other companies that are looking for your assets. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I just remember you just talking in between rehearsals and kind of seeing you go through this journey, as we make our way from one space or one job to the next. And I mean, now kind of looking back at it, I mean, I think you've dealt with a lot. I mean, just even in the job sense, and even just creating a life, here in the States. And I don't know if that's something that you're even comfortable with talking about, but just I
Hmm.
can only imagine that there's a lot of people that are also going through that. And whatever you feel comfortable in sharing, can I mean, I remember the day that I found out, and when you had told me that you had gotten your green card, I was just like, because I remember we were talking about you didn't know if you were going to be able to come back for another year in grown-ups.
Hmm.
And I just remember being so sad. I remember we were at Vallarta's, I think. I don't know if you remember this, but remember us really having a heart to heart and just being like, man, like I need to cherish every moment. And obviously it worked out. And I don't know if you can maybe just take us through, going back a little bit, but what was that process even like? That's something I haven't had to deal with. And so if whenever you feel
Hmm.
comfortable and sharing with the audience and with me,
Hmm.
love to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, no problem. It's a very lengthy process, immigrating uh, from other countries to America. Um, I can only speak from my experience,
Mhm.
and I think my experience is very common. Um, but other people with different backgrounds may not have experienced what I've had. So experiences vary, but what how my process, how I started was I was an international student. Um, I grew up in Taiwan. I've always wanted to come to the US because I just wanted somewhere somewhere away from my hometown, my home country.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I was able to actually enroll into college here in the United States. It was in Rhode Island, RISD, one of a very prestigious art school. But I graduated, um, and for international students, after you graduate, you have a 1 year grace period. I wouldn't say a grace period. It's called OPT, and it's basically a program where you can work. Uh, you can work full time for 40 hours a week for a full year. And within that time, you're just gaining that experience, and whatever is after that is really up to you. And that's when I was mentally breaking down at Vallartas with you. I was talking about how like I probably won't find a way to like actually stay here, and
Mhm.
um I've just gotten to know you and grown ups, and I've made San Diego my home for now, and I didn't want to lose that.
Mhm.
Um, Luckily for me, I was seeing Daniel at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was very yeah, I think I was very privileged in actually getting to meet him. And we started dating.
Mhm.
And we said, uh if we love each other, then let's just get married and let's just apply for a green card, so we can live the rest of our lives, not fearing for deportation or any immigration issue.
Mm,
And so we did
mm,
that. But uh, there's there's always money is always like an issue. Um, to actually apply for the green card is not bad, but applying by yourself is very risky. Like that's Yeah, so I didn't want to risk it, so I I had to hire a lawyer.
Oh,
And that was that was a huge chunk of my PlayStation money that I didn't even pay much. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, that was a really hefty process, and it took a toll on my mental health and
Mm,
on Daniel's.
mm,
Um, but I stuck with it and pulled through, and now we have the green card, and now we are here.
mm.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to the audience who, isn't able to visualize this or whatever platform you're listening to this to, I mean, I was there when you guys had the ceremony, and it was a beautiful day. And it was a small group of us in Guam. This is obviously pre-COVID, and I just remember it being just a beautiful day and us taking pictures. And it just it felt amazing, and it felt. I mean, it's so crazy how I feel like as dancers we are so much more aware of like body language, and like you can feel when someone's tense, and just I remember that day just seeing like you can see that proverbial like that weight off your shoulders. Like it was just another like
Right.
okay, another part of the mountain you had climbed.
Hmm.
You were just like on a nice little like flat patch of rock for a little bit. And it was really great to witness that and to have seen that and to see like where you are today. And so, I mean, that process, like again, I can't stress enough how I really don't know how you did that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you could speak to this, but like even before I got married and had uh, went into the process of getting my green card, I think it was around Body Rock where I was actually like, we have Body Rock, and I have to leave the country. I have 2 months to leave the country during Body Rock, or else I would actually get deported. And
Yeah.
that was a huge anxiety. And Grown-Ups was kind of this like solace, this sanctuary where I could just leave that alone. And right after it, I would drop back into my anxiety. And I remember talking to Moore and Michelle about it. I was like,
Mhm.
damn, I'm like, this is gonna be the last thing I ever do here in Grown Ups. And I'm never gonna see you guys. And yeah, no, I and then to see that and like where I am right now
Mm.
is yeah, it's been a really rough journey for me at least. So I don't know if you can speak to that, but yeah, no, I definitely agree that there's definitely a relief, like a unburdening of the shoulders, of weight on my shoulders. So yeah,
No,
I'm
and and
definitely
that's the thing too. It's even just noticing and seeing those things from afar, and you're not one to bother anyone about what you're going through, and it was just something that you can always feel it. And obviously having connected with you on those things that you were dealing with outside of the rehearsal space really just put a different perspective on like what, like there's no excuse why I can't be mentally completely focused when I know there's someone right next to me who's going through so much shit that I'm not even having to deal with. And so in a strange way, hindsight is 2020, but it was also like there's no way I can't do anything less than my best, knowing that you were harboring a lot more weight. And so, one, I just want to say thank you for even just sharing that, because that's a shit ton of, of things, and this is all pre-COVID too, which is the crazy thing. It's like it's
right.
just like
People have their years, right? People have that 1 year that everything just like plummets and goes down. Like 2019 was that year. So,
mm,
but I mean, COVID is COVID is a pandemic. So, yeah, no, it's been rough. It's been a rough time, but I'm still
absolutely.
sticking through it. But we're still in this traumatic experience called
I
COVID,
know.
so we'll
Well,
see that one through as well.
absolutely, and I did want to pick your brain a little bit on that too, just because I feel like this year has I think it's been really shining a light on a lot of darkness, which has actually been good. Obviously,
Mhm.
with the the casualties and the fatalities and the way we've gone about it, largely due to our our so and so leaders, has probably put us in this and elongated this process. But it's also allowed to shine the, like I said, the light on all the darkness. And I just want to know in terms of like how you've, if you can look back in terms of when it really took an effect here in our part in the U.S. In San Diego, maybe how you've grown and how you've adapted over the course of these last 8 months. What's that journey been like for you? That microcosm of since March, since the shutdowns up until this point, what's that journey been like for you? Just adjusting to COVID.
Mm. I think I've learned a lot about during my time between March and now, um, where I started working from home, has been a really good time for me to realign my priorities. So I've this design thing that I went to school for, and then I
Mm-hmm.
have dance. Um, and so it was a good time for me to kind of talk to myself about what's the best action moving forward, which direction is the best for me moving forward. And I still to this day have um my conflicts on whether or not I should keep dancing or design, or do both, or do design and do dance on the sideline. Um, that's been a huge thing for me, and COVID. I would say this pandemic has really helped me realign those priorities. Um, and in terms of priority, for right now, my work in design, I've just started, and I want to continue growing as a designer. Um, and that's not to say that dance is a distraction. I love dancing. I love the communal aspect of dancing and sharing spaces together. Um, and how we just meet on Fridays, or sorry, Mondays and Thursdays and the ass crack of dawn, um, just dancing, you know?
Mhm.
And I love that aspect about it, but I think moving forward, there has to be sacrifices made, um, and priorities given more time to certain directions in your life, you know? And I'm not saying I just want to completely like shut dance out. I just feel like this time is very, people are very vulnerable. COVID is still a thing, and it doesn't make sense for me to um, go out of my way to do this one thing, but I also have another priority here at home, where I'm working. So for me, work right now or my career in design is a little bit on the higher end of my priority list than dance is. But yeah, I think COVID has helped me realign those priorities.
Mm, absolutely. And I think there's nothing wrong with getting your priorities, really truly strained out. I think even
Hmm.
to myself, I definitely had the blinders on for a long time, doing it full time in terms of dancing and teaching. And when COVID happened and seeing everything taken away from you like that made it be like, okay, you need to remember that like you can lose everything at any given point. Like I need to make sure that I have assets that, I can always, do something that I love. To what degree, I don't know. I want to say to the audience too is I have the highest regard for you, Ken, in terms of just, movement and dance and just even just being like a great person in those shared spaces. I really, really always felt that from day one. I was definitely distant because I was like, who is this? I'm like, You know,
Yeah, yeah, I saw your face at auditions. I
that was
remember I remember doing like a small 80% mark, and then I almost hit you. You were against the wall, right? You were sitting down, I almost hit you, and you just gave me
what you
a really
swear, you
huge
swear,
death
you're like.
stare. And I was like, okay, well, I'll see you in grown ups.
That's so. I actually don't remember that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
um, I do want to say, Ken, the audience is probably wondering, and I think it's important to, get into the root and the foundation of things.
Hmm.
Even to this day, um, we'll start with dance first because that's how you and I met through those shared spaces of class. But if you can just talk about how you, one, got introduced to dance, and two, how you even just started in dance. Like, how did that even start? I feel like that's for us that are older. It's like you almost like such a long time ago. Like, so what was that? What was that like for you? Like, how did you even get into it?
Well, I think hmm, I think it started off with my sister actually. So we were we moved to Canada. Um, and I was about 9, 10 years old. She took hip hop classes in the next door studio, and I was very unfit at the time. So my mom enrolled me into the same hip hop classes, taught by the same teacher, but obviously different grade levels. Um, Not really into it. Yeah, no, I was really, I, w- I was not like both, but it was kind of a little bit naturally gifted
Mm,
in terms of rhythm
yeah.
than my peers.
Mm,
It was pretty natural for me, so I kept with it until I moved to Taiwan, where high school and applying for colleges was a thing, and I
mhm,
put it in back burner for a little while. Then I came to the States where um, I joined a dance team. I wouldn't say it's a dance team. I would say it's a dance company. It's uh yeah, we call ourselves Impulse Dance Company, and we do mostly exhibition shows for our school.
mhm,
Um yeah, and that's where it really uh hit a tipping point. I was like, this is exciting. Like I can share a space with a bunch of people. We can
mhm,
rehearse a bunch, we can make routines up, and then we can perform it to a bunch of people. That excited me very much. So
mhm,
then I moved to San Diego with the
mhm,
expectation that I would continue this my my hobby of dancing.
mhm,
Since I had a couple friends from San Diego who told me about kind of the repertoire, the reputation of San Diego and their dance
mhm,
community. I was like, yes, I'm in it. It was either
mhm.
here or San Francisco, and I was like, no, I'll just San Diego sounds better. Uh,
Mhm. Come
so
on
I
now.
did that. I moved here, and then the first person I met who was also a dancer was Jairus. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and
what?
we were in his coffee shop and
Amosha, Amosha.
at Mostra, and
Oh shoot.
he he called me up because I don't know what. I think I was probably freestyle. I don't know. Music was on. You know how you like little bops and here and there.
Hmm.
So Jairus was like, "You dance?" I was like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "Yeah, you should audition for Grown Up season 2." And he put his like information down and
Whoa.
the
So you
Instagram
met when you were
channel.
getting coffee. You met Jess when you were getting coffee.
Right,
That's insane.
right. And then he was like, just audition. It's in 2 months. Yeah, I'll see you there. And it just went from there. And yeah, and now we're here.
Shout out to Jairus for me. Shout out to
I know.
Jairus. What? That's crazy. Oh my God. Wow. What I mean, and you kind of touched up on a little bit too, and if you don't mind, but I mean, I think something that gets overlooked, and I feel even it's just gonna get more difficult now. I mean, just I mean, if you can just talk about growing up in the dance classroom, but you had talked about at the time when your mom enrolled you, you weren't as fit as she wanted, like you to be. And so, I mean, I can only imagine that's like two things. One just being just, I mean, having the bot like if you are that type at the time, and like being in a dance class, it's like it's very physical, it's very active, there's a lot of cardio. Like, I mean, did
Yeah.
you ever feel tension from other people? Did you ever feel judged? I mean, kids are at that young age, like they're
Oh,
brutal.
all the time. I was a really big kid. Yeah. And I think my first recital, it hit me. Um,
Mm,
uh, started understanding subtle nuances of how people looked at me, um, of big body people. Um, but it was my first recital, and we had to go get costumes, and none of the things that they required me to put on actually fit me. Um, so we were scouring
yeah.
the entire state of Columbia, British Columbia,
Oh my
of
god.
Vancouver, just to find these camo pants and like some dumb, I don't know. But it was ridiculous. Like I didn't think I needed to like go all the way out just to find
Mhm,
a piece of fabric that would actually fit me.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, even growing up in Taiwan where I took dance classes over there, um, I was pretty, I, I don't know, I felt like there was a lot of scrutiny and um, kind of the monitoring of my body during these classes. Um, and on the other side, they would be kind of surprised to see that I could actually move, um,
mhm,
which is very, which is daunting to me because, like, why would you not expect someone of my size to move?
mhm,
Um, what's your preconceived notion of someone of my body size? Um,
yeah,
so it was an adjustment for me. Um, but I just wanted to dance and take classes, but
mm,
I I feared people looking down at me. Um, so there was definitely a conflict, and even like between the time I moved to Rhode Island, where I
mhm,
actually joined the company, I didn't dance for a while because a lot of people would just shrug me off and say, "Oh, this is fat, chubby kid who wants to take
mm,
class, like he can't move, right?" So yeah, and I lost a lot of weight, um, starved myself. It was not healthy, but
yeah,
I I got back into shape, and I
mm,
said, "Hey, I still love dancing, so why not just audition for this one company, right?"
mm,
Um, I did, and I got in, and I was really happy, and I'd had really great shared experiences with my college friends over there. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, you kind of touched up a little bit on it, Ken, but I mean, especially nowadays, it's, we're a little bit more aware of what we said, what we do, our actions, like even smaller political statements. I think we're all just starting to really, as a whole, be more aware. But I mean, during this time, um, is not as prevalent as it is now. And if you could just talk about like what ultimately was like the driving factor for you to deal with all that bullshit in those dance spaces in terms of being body shamed, in terms of being like looked down upon, belittled, being doubted, being shrugged off as, being ostracized, so many things. Like what was that ultimate like throughout all this, I am still going to conquer and I'm gonna get through this. Like what was that? what in you like made you put up with that and deal with it and ultimately prosper?
Yeah, no, I think for me it was understanding it was understanding that my worth and my value is not intrinsic to how I look and how I approach to people. And that's and my value is is what I define, and not what other people think about me. Um, and that's hard. That's hard for me to understand because uh, at the same time you're being ostracized and bullied and all this stuff. But you're just out here trying to have fun. All right.
Mm,
So, um, but I had to stick with understanding that, and that took a while. Um, but yeah, until I understood my value, as a person, as a dancer, um, then I could actually step into these spaces and be like, hey, I don't need to. I'm not doing anything for you. Like my body is not any of your business, and
mm,
not it's not something you can just monitor. Um, and that when I come into these spaces, I'm literally just there to learn, right? To dance. Um, so what's what's your what's your motivation in taking these classes? Like, are you really here to take classes, or are you really here to like show off and show your cool dance moves, you know?
mm,
And that's something I've noticed um and learned a lot about the San Diego dance community. Is some people will take it um very very image based, in that regard, but not really take the class time as an opportunity to learn.
mm.
And that's something I've learned. But back to my body size, I think, yeah, understanding that what other people think about me is not should not reflect how I feel about myself, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you hit it on the head right there, Ken. But if you can just talk and share your opinions, and I share a lot of the same sentiments. I think especially now that we are living in this social media crazed era,
Hmm.
um, things like art or art forms tend to be more about showing you what I can do rather than I need to pass this down to the next generation from what I learned. And so if you can just talk about your experiences of the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of dance spaces or classes or workshops, whatever you experience, and just talk about the difference in terms of feeling and what you're able to take away from something where you feel like the teacher has your best interests, and then from a teacher that only solely is trying to make sure that they're stepping up their clout and making sure their name gets bigger from every
Mm.
class they teach. If you can maybe share a little bit of your experience from both sectors.
Yeah. I feel like as a critique to um, some teachers I've enrolled classes with, is that you're here to teach, right? Um, so so I think framing when when the when the students first come in, I think framing your intentions for teaching, um, and outlining what your students are supposed to take away from these classes are really important, as opposed
Mm,
to coming into class and structuring your class based on your choreography. Then we take videos and select groups. I think um, And that kind of defeats the purpose of us coming to class because your students paid to learn from you. So why don't you give them a little bit of your 2 cents, right? Instead of
Mm,
just giving choreography, um, in which they can just take and learn outside of studio.
mm,
Like there's more to these classes than just choreography. Um, on the student on the student side, I would say that keeping an open mind and um, being open to making mistakes, because that's how we learn. Um, I think in the age of social media, we're so used to seeing a lot of people kill it in these videos, but we don't see the progress and process of getting to that place where they are. Um, and these classes are again, it's also the teacher who needs to be taken account
mm,
for is that how are they structuring these? Because like if you're telling your students to come in and learn their choreography, um, and then do select group at the end of the class, then you're setting the expectation that they need to get the choreography right,
mm,
as opposed to structuring your class to cater to your students and teaching more about dance rather than choreography. And I don't know what that would look like, um, to be honest, because I'm just a student as well. So I'm talking in i- as a in the experience of a student. But
mhm,
I think I think being open to failure and mistakes will help you to be really short and easy. It'll
mhm.
help you succeed in the future. Um, but I also feel like being open to learn new things
Mm,
and not having a set expectation on what the choreographer is going to teach you is also important. Because in order to be a really good dancer, you need to be versatile. And just like any
mm,
artist, you're grabbing different styles, different genres of dance forms, um, and you're helping yourself by diversifying your movement and your movement quality. And in turn, you're becoming more and more a versatile dancer, and that's how you come into class and not make those same mistakes you keep making after class, if that makes sense.
absolutely. I mean, first of all, just your words hold a lot of weight, and you've been in the game for a long time, and so I appreciate you for sharing those words of wisdom. All which I completely support, and thank you for just speaking those out loud. Um, we can't also ignore the fact, Ken, that I also want to dig and not only know the roots of how you started with dance, but also the other art form that's ultimately been this you found a real life and making a hell of a career out of it. So one, just how the hell did you even get into graphic design? And I mean, just kind of going back to those humble beginnings of just getting into it and what that was like.
Mhm. I like a lot of designers I've met throughout my time. Um, I've never been academically astute. Like I was never a good student. Um, but our class somehow was a really good sanctuary or was a really good um space for me to zone out. Um, and but everything else aside, just like how dance is to me, um,
Mm,
our class was the same. And I just got very invested into it during high school. And I said, hey, like this could be a career path. Um, and I started digging, looking into more higher education that would actually help me get a career in the arts. Um, and I was very fortunate enough to have my mom was very liberal about academic and arts issues. Um,
Mhm,
she wanted me to enroll in any school as long as I'm getting a good education.
mm,
Um, but I feel like the set expectation in my household was that you have to, if you're going to any field, you have to be in the best one, right? So you have to be in the best school.
mm.
Um, and for me, that was an art school, and so
Yes.
I I looked up all the art schools in America, and I also ventured into Europe, but it was not that was not sticking to me. I said America's probably a good choice, and RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, uh, pretty rigorous. And talked to my art professor at the time and a couple of my other friends, and they were like, "Yeah, this is a very prestigious school known for its arts." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's just apply." Um, and that's where I got that's where things like was a little edgy because again, back to back to our conversation about another topic, I didn't do my research, right? This is the thing, like you really need to do your research when you're making big steps like these.
Mm,
Um, and for me, RISD was not one of them. I said, America, good schools, I need to go, and that is it. And a part of that decision came from kind of my family's expectation of like being enrolled in like a highly prestigious uh, institution like RISD.
mhm.
At RISD, we call the school the Harvard of art schools, and I just thought that was super pretentious. But I could see why. It was a
Mm,
really it was a really rigorous education, um, very enlightening. I met very special people that I'm still very close with
mm,
over there. Yeah, and not too long ago, I was like, yeah, I'm initially I came into school wanting to study illustration, um, and being being at college exposes you to a lot of different opportunities. So, um, I took a bunch of other classes outside of my department. I took mostly graphic design classes, workshops,
mm.
um, do a bunch of stuff in order to make sure that I'm actually, heading the right way and actually fulfilling my um, what I want to do in my career. But around junior, senior year, it was kind of a mixed bag. I was like, I have illustration, I like graphic design, and I'm in the dance company. Um, so all of these things like uh, kind of melded into each other, and I was like, I'll find a way. I need to find a way to have find a marriage between all these art forms together. And so myself, maybe I'll find a a company in a certain place in California, just
Mhm.
dope dancers, um, and I can probably work for those dancers, right? So then an opportunity in San Diego, and I was like, this 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 is it. This is that's I nailed the jackpot. So yeah, that's how everything started. Um, I'm not sure if that was too long, but I don't have like an
No,
easy answer for
no,
anything
absolutely.
really.
I wouldn't expect anything less. I wouldn't want anything less. And I think, like you said, I mean, getting both of those things, both of those passions, um, you know, graphic design and dance, and you being able to find a home and make a really great community and being able to share both of those. And you also do a lot of the graphic work for grown-ups. And that's like, and even you actually helped me, for those that are listening and tuning into the podcast here with Ken. I mean, you actually helped me early in quarantine when I was really trying to work backwards and say, okay, now that I know what I'm doing this year, I need to think what I'm going to be, what I'm working for in 2 years. And you actually helped
Mhm.
me write five really big goals, but instead of just writing them down on paper or putting them on my phone like I normally do, I mean, you did it to a point where you designed it and I was able to post it and to share it and really hold myself accountable. And it's so wild how like how art and design have such a powerful, but it really had an effect on me. And when I saw you do it, I remember reaching out to you after. I was like, hey, I don't know what you're doing. I know you're going through your own stuff, but I need you to make time to make me that, because whatever that was, I like it. I need that inspiration in my life. And that's just one of the many ways that you've also found your way to like touch me in a way that just helps me try to be the best me. And it's so wild that that's been harnessed and fostered through your graphic design abilities and also your dance abilities. And it's just like, I don't know, I'm just gushing right now because there's so many instances, these little moments that carry so much weight that you've done for me. And I just want to say thank you. Like, really.
You're welcome. I thank you for I thank you for showing your face to me, honestly. Thank you for giving me that death stare when I wasn't more I wasn't actually expecting that.
it's it's so funny how things starting to see where we are now, similar to like you starting did those dance classes and being like, look where I'm now. Um,
Mhm.
I did want to touch on it too, Ken. I think just this journey that you've come on, and all these things that you've experienced, even just the things that you have to experience that a lot of people don't, like myself, and you're in completely immigrating here and getting the green card, and that moment of uncertainty and growing up and being an artist and going through all the adversities that come with being an artist. Um, and I would say like being like a double artist, you having like these talents in both, right? Um, what would you say to your 13-year-old self?
Mm. Mm. Hmm. Trying to think what 13-year-old me was like. Hmm, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about this, but um, hmm, I feel like I should backtrack a little bit and talk about what I meant about. I was talking to you about understanding your value, um, and that's something I've during these couple of really rough years for me, I've stuck with. Um, I would really tell myself to uh, understand your value and your worth. Um, that mm, in some time in some place, your value is going to be useful for a project or someone else, so that you can use your value and turn it around and make it into a superpower of yours. As corny
Mm,
as that sounds, um, yeah, I feel like understanding your own value and your worth is so much more important than trying to be successful in life. Um, yeah, and in some time or place, someone is going to be looking for that same value that you hold yourself with, uh, and you, take you places. Um, just by understanding your worth. Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. And hope for those of you that are tuning in, just understanding and knowing your worth is so simple but so complex. And
Mhm.
we have a great living example of that here, Ken and
Yeah.
his journey and
Mm.
sharing everything. And we're still figuring it out though. And that's the thing. We're not finished products. We're still figuring out. But
Right.
even
We're work in
even
processes. Hmm.
even just scratching the surface is like a huge step for from years ago where we didn't even value ourselves. And so I think that's great. Ken, where can we find your work? Do you have a portfolio online somewhere? Maybe just some handles or some social media. I know you share your work a lot. Maybe some things that people can find you that we can follow. We can just, see your amazing work. I think it's super important. Is there any like links or maybe spaces you would like to share?
Yeah,
Anything?
sure. I post a lot of my artwork more recently on my Instagram.
Mhm,
It's at Uncle Kiman. We can
mhm.
talk about that later in another
Yep.
podcast,
Yes.
but it's Uncle Kiman at
Mhm,
you Uncle KIMON. And
mhm.
my website is kenni.huangg.net. Yeah, those are my earlier works, but you can see more later work in Instagram.
I love it. And we're gonna definitely link all those things in all the descriptions and stuff so people can find you. So again, you guys, you can find Ken on his Instagram handle that he just mentioned, and he has a site for all his works. And I'm assuming you still upload there. So there'll be like even maybe more up-to-date stuff, or just it's kind of like where the archives are at for you.
It's from my archives, but I feel like listening to having heard that, I feel like I need to update it now. Yeah, so I will update it and I will hold that accountable. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you're on. Everyone that's listening is holding you accountable because they're gonna be on there like, hey, where's your upload?
These are old work. Where are the new
Right.
works?
Ken, but just like everyone else, I just want to say thank you again so much for giving us your time. There's so much happening given our current climate, and so for you just to even have the time and the energy to give to us today means the world to me. And just know that there's definitely going to be a follow up at some point. And so hopefully, if you guys, loved Ken's story, and we're going to get to dig into more once we get back for that second round. So stay tuned for that. We'll be in touch, and I love you so much. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me. Bye.
Love ya.